Let me build the hybrid script now, taking the best of both. Here is the hybrid script, built by taking the narrative power and historical depth from theirs, then tightening every sentence to match the punchy rhythm and rule compliance from mine. Your mind is not broken, but it is being stolen. Every single day, piece by piece, second by second, you wake up with the best intentions. You sit down to work, and then your phone buzzes. A notification pops up. Someone walks by, and suddenly it is 3 hours later, and you cannot remember what you were supposed to be doing. That hollow, foggy, frustrated feeling, that is what it costs to live without a system. And that is exactly why you clicked on this video. Here is what is wild. This problem is not new. People have been fighting for their attention since long before smartphones existed, and no one understood the battle for the mind better than a man who lived almost 2,000 years ago. A man who ruled the most powerful empire on the earth while fighting wars, managing plagues, watching political betrayal happen up close. And somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, he sat down every single morning and wrote philosophy. Not for views, not for anyone else, but because he had built a mental system so strong that the noise of the world could not touch the clarity inside his head. That man was Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. And today, you are getting his 6 most powerful secrets for mastering your attention. Stay with me, because the 6th one changes everything. Now let us talk about the real problem. Most people think their attention problem is about distraction. Put the phone in another room. Download a focus app. Find a quieter place. But that is not the actual problem. The actual problem is autopilot. Drifting through your day reacting to whatever shows up, instead of choosing where your mind goes. Marcus described this in his private journal as a kind of sleep. Not sleep of the body. Sleep of the will. And he was ruthless about waking himself up from it. Think about your own day. How much of it do you actually choose? Not just what to do, but what to think about, what to give your energy to, what to care about. Most of us just move from one thing to the next like a leaf on a river, and the world is built to keep you doing exactly that. Because when you are reacting, when you are scrolling and clicking and refreshing, you are predictable, you are useful to someone else. The Stoics called this a quiet prison. You are free. Nobody forces you to pick up your phone. But the chains are real. They are just built out of habit, convenience, and the design of every app you use. Most people will spend their whole lives in that prison and never notice the walls. Marcus Aurelius noticed, and he spent decades developing tools to stay free. Here are the 6 that matter most. Principle 1 is the discipline of assent. This is the foundation of everything, every single second. Your brain is receiving impressions, thoughts, worries, cravings, random memories, the sound of someone chewing across the room. Your brain throws all of this at you, constantly. The untrained mind says yes to everything. It welcomes every thought and runs with it wherever it leads. The Stoic mind does something different. It pauses, it looks, and then it decides. Is this worth my attention right now? Marcus wrote that the quality of your life is determined not by what happens to you, but by the impressions you choose to entertain. What shows up in your mind is not your fault. What you do with it absolutely is. Most people treat every incoming thought like a VIP guest that must be welcomed immediately. The discipline of assent teaches you to be the bouncer at the door of your own mind. You decide who gets in. Practice it today. The next time a distracting thought shows up while you are working, pause. Notice it, give it a label, then choose to let it go or engage with it deliberately. That tiny moment of choice is where your power lives. Principle 2 is single-mindedness. The Romans had a word, intentio, meaning a stretching toward, directing your full force at one single point. And Marcus was almost obsessive about this. He wrote that the person who pursues many things at once accomplishes nothing worth accomplishing. We all know multitasking is bad, but knowing it and living it are very different things. Here is what it looks like in practice. You pick one thing, just one, and you give it everything. Not 90%, not most of your attention while the rest worries about unanswered emails. Everything. Like a Roman soldier in battle. Full commitment, eyes forward, Because every time you switch tasks, your brain pays a cost. Researchers call it a switching tax. It takes time for your mind to fully re-engage after each shift. The people who seem to get the most done are not working faster, they are switching less. Pick one thing, go all the way, then move to the next. Principle 3 is preferred indifference. This one is counterintuitive. The Stoics made a sharp distinction between true goods, things like wisdom and courage, and preferred indifference, things like success, money, and praise. The key idea is this: work hard toward the outcome, but do not emotionally depend on it. Here is why this matters for focus. When you desperately need a result, that desperation follows you into every moment of your work. Every few minutes, your brain checks in. Is it working? What if I fail? What will people think? Each check-in breaks your concentration. Each one pulls you out of the present where the actual work happens. Preferred indifference gives you a clean relationship with your work. You show up fully. You give everything you have, and then you hold the outcome loosely, not because you do not care, but because the caring is directed at the effort, not the result. When you stop desperately monitoring for results, you can actually sink into the work, and that is when your best work happens. Principle 4 is strategic non-action, not giving up, not procrastinating, deliberately choosing to pause and recover perspective before acting. Marcus wrote that the mind in a hurried state is like water stirred in a bowl. It needs time to settle before the bottom becomes visible again. In a world that rewards urgency, this feels risky. We have been taught that action is always better than pause. But think about the best decisions you have ever made. Were they made in the frantic middle of a hard moment, or after you had time to breathe, think, and let the noise die down? When you feel your focus fracturing, when you feel scattered and pulled in 10 directions, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop. Not forever, just long enough to regather yourself. Step outside. Take 5 deep breaths. Look at something far away. Let the bowl settle. Then return. You will come back sharper. What felt like an impossible tangle will often have simplified itself while you were away. Principle 5 is inner authority. The Stoics called it the hegemonikon, your ruling faculty, the part of you that decides, not your emotions, not other people's opinions, not the algorithm, the rational, deliberate choosing part of your mind. And Marcus treated this faculty like it was sacred. He protected it, trained it, refused to let external noise reach it unchallenged. Here is the modern problem. Your phone tells you what is important via notifications. Your feed tells you what to think about via algorithm. Your colleagues tell you what is urgent via messages. And if you are not careful, all of that external input slowly takes over the job that should belong to your own mind. Deciding what matters. Marcus was surrounded by advisors who all wanted a piece of his attention. Some brilliant, some self-serving, and one of his greatest skills was listening carefully while retaining final authority over his own mind. He wrote that the man who cannot rule himself will always be ruled by someone else. Not aggressively, constantly. That is the quiet loss that happens when you let the world decide what you think about. Inner authority starts with something simple. Before you check your phone in the morning, before you consume anything, decide deliberately where your mind will go. Make that choice consciously, every single day. Watch how fast it changes your focus. Principle 6 is Amor Fati. It means love of fate, or more precisely, love of what is. Not just accepting your circumstances, actively loving them, even the hard parts, even the obstacles. This is not toxic positivity. It is something deeper. It is the recognition that everything that happens, including the struggle, is part of the path. Most of us fight our circumstances constantly. The conditions are not right. The environment is too noisy. The project is too hard. The deadline is too tight. And all of that fighting consumes enormous energy. Energy that could go into the actual work. Amor Fati is the practice of making peace with conditions as they are and choosing to work brilliantly within them. Marcus ruled during war and plague. He never had ideal conditions, but he wrote that the obstacle is the raw material of great work, not its enemy. This is not passivity. It means you stop letting imperfect circumstances become an excuse for scattered effort. You look at the noise and the difficulty, and you say, yes, this is where I am, and this is where I will focus. Not later, now. That kind of acceptance is the most powerful form of mental clarity available to a human being. Now here's the conflict most people miss. Modern culture tells you discipline is a restriction, a cage. That focus means giving things up and suffering through discomfort for some future reward. And because of that belief, most people avoid it. They drift on autopilot and tell themselves they will focus when they feel more motivated. When the time is right, when life gets easier. That time never comes. The Stoic view is the opposite. Marcus did not experience his practices as a cage. He experienced them as the only door to actual freedom. Because an undisciplined mind is not free, it is enslaved to whoever or whatever captured it most recently. The notification, the fear, the craving, the opinion of someone you do not even respect. That is not freedom, that is just a less visible prison. The discipline of assent, single-mindedness, preferred indifference, strategic non-action, inner authority, Amor Fati. These are not restrictions. They are the architecture of a free mind. And here is the final truth. The one Marcus understood and almost nobody talks about. Focus does not drain your energy. It creates it. This seems backwards. Concentration feels tiring. But here is what actually empties you at a devastating rate. Distraction, switching, fragmentation, the constant low-level anxiety of a scattered mind, the emotional weight of things left unfinished because you kept getting pulled away. That is what wipes you out. That is why you can spend an entire day at your desk, accomplish almost nothing, and still feel more exhausted than if you had run a marathon. When you focus deeply on one thing, something different happens. The mind settles. The background noise quiets. You start making real, visible progress. Progress creates momentum. Momentum creates energy. Marcus wrote that the mind gains strength by resisting distraction, not by indulging it. Every time you hold your attention on what matters, even when something tries to pull it away, you are building capacity. The next time, the resistance is easier, the focus deeper, the energy more available. This is the gift the Stoics were pointing toward all along. Not just a more productive life, a more alive one. A life where you are actually present for what you are doing, where the quality of your attention transforms the quality of your experience. Today, pick one of these 6 principles. Just one. The discipline of assent. If you want to start at the foundation, Amor Fati. If you need permission to stop fighting your circumstances. Inner authority if you have been handing the wheel to the wrong drivers. Start there. Practice it today, not perfectly, just deliberately. Because that is where every empire begins, not with grand gestures, with one small, conscious choice to reclaim your mind. There is a video right here that goes even deeper into how Marcus Aurelius built his daily system. Go watch it next. And if you have not yet, hit subscribe. Because we are just getting started.